Welcome back to the news. While Michael's away, I get to talk about Overwatch 2, the surprising truth behind it. Capcom kind of finally demasking a little bit with how much they're charging for something specific. A little bit of an insight into what happens when you bully developers on Twitter, what literally goes on behind the scenes. And also, good guy Larian. Larian Studios, currently the darling of everyone's eye, and for damn good reason, taking a step to, I think, secure a future for the industry that's really, really fascinating. So starting off with Overwatch then, it's Steam's worst game of all time, 9% positive reviews, to be expected. Don't know how Blizzard didn't see it coming. They probably did and went, maybe it'll be better, because, you know, copium seems to be Blizzard's shtick. Anyway, people say this is like the true community speaking out honestly, because there's over 100,000 reviews. Clearly people went, I'm going to hit the button, I'm going to run it for a short period of time and re-download it and like see what's going on, maybe play it for a couple minutes, or even just click the add to library and go. It seems like a lot of energy to go, okay, because you could just ignore it. The only reason you would leave a review is if you've invested interest in what happens. And in this case, obviously people kind of love to dunk on it, but something else. Because Neandra points out here that Overwatch 2 having over 30,000 negative Steam reviews, a lot more now, but a current player count of 65,000 and 12 most played game right now is extremely on brand. And that's exactly it. People love to hate Blizzard, but at the end of the day, there's people who still play it. The 24 hours after launch saw it climb the ranks of top sellers by revenue. It's a free-to-play game, right? But you see here, it's 4th in top revenue. That's a lot of people buying a ticket to the car crash. Obviously, most of it is going to be the Invasion bundle, which isn't a lot of money, but compared to, you know, say Starfield there, top by revenue, you would need the Invasion bundle was about 20% of the price of Starfield. So however many people have pre-ordered Starfield on that day, there's over 5 times as many buying the Invasion bundle to see what it's like, to get a look at what Overwatch 2's promise what actually was now that it's been implemented. So it's a little bit of a brain tickler, right? How are people hating the game so much, but they still have a lot of players and people spending money? And this is something spotted by Nico Partners Director of Research Daniel Amat, who we absolutely love the insight he shows all the time, from being one of the only people who will bridge the gap between the East and the West on this stuff. This isn't really about Overwatch 2 the game, it's about the product of Activision Blizzard, which obviously we said all the time, good game, bad product. That's Blizzard's kind of MO at the minute, to be honest. But he says that nearly 2/3 of the reviews at the time, which is 63,000, are written in simplified Chinese, which means this screenshot here, 28,000 your languages, I assume that's only English. That's still a lot of reviews, but there's so many more in simplified Chinese. And then you go, okay, well, why is that? And is that relevant to you? Does that matter whatsoever? And it's just an example of Blizzard being Blizzard again. Blizzard pulled out of China in January of 2023. So this is the first time people in China can play Blizzard games in a while, as long as they have a VPN to the international version of Steam and not Steam China. This is them taking all the frustration that was bundled up since earlier this year, since the start of this year, when their World of Warcraft accounts were thrown in the bin, when they lost their access to Diablo, when they lost their access to Overwatch, and now they get to go, okay, unleash the beast. They got to go completely mask off, say whatever they wanted about. And that's why there's so much of it. Because as Ahmad puts it, obviously like reading through some of the reviews, he says, it's criticism of Blizzard's handling of the game, the lack of a national server and existing game accounts, slow to log in, poor online connection, which obviously not really an issue outside of slightly at launch in the West, so it's literally a Chinese server issue, and criticism over shutdown of national server and impact on gaming communities, which is basically them saying, hey, we actually quite liked Overwatch 2, or Overwatch, or whatever. We quite liked playing it. We can't play it anymore, and this really annoys us. Which is interesting because it seems a little bit of, like, the player base is actually kind of more centered in China at this point, because the biggest player numbers are in the middle of the day in Central European time and early morning US time. Of course, Europeans have jobs, right? Americans are sleeping. Now, there might be some, let's say, internet savvy people who play early morning US time, but generally speaking, the largest player numbers are exactly the evening time for China, the evening and the night, when they're actually sitting down after work or whatever to play the game. And that's, especially in a Western game, you don't see that on Steam. You mostly see it being, okay, it's US evening time, or the start of European evening time leading into the next wave on the way up for the next couple hours. It's usually that, but that's not this at all. Feedback is actually coming from the Chinese audience who are really disappointed in how Blizzard handled it. But obviously you take that away, it's still overwhelmingly negative. There's nothing, I don't think anything can change it at that point. So it's interesting if Blizzard can see that, and maybe this is why they're happy to go on Steam. Maybe they get to see this feedback. Maybe they get to see, okay, we are the worst rated game on Steam, how do we solve this PR problem now that it's out in the open and really obvious. Hopefully it's a bit of a wake-up call, because it needs to be before they release another product, or all of that hatred, that bundle of fury and frustration and we don't trust your game and we're not going to play it, that'll carry over unless they're careful. Meanwhile, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, good guy Larian, once again. So Larian obviously released a game that D&D, obviously a fairly big IP these days with the movie, with everyone playing it, Critical Role, etc, etc, etc. Baldur's Gate doesn't immediately scream of that. Obviously you'll watch the game or you'll hear people and you'll get it, but Baldur's Gate 3 doesn't sound like a massively established IP, yet it still went almost toe-to-toe with Hogwarts Legacy on Steam. So they're doing a good job, but there's a lot of words in Baldur's Gate 3, and not everyone who had involvement in those words was credited. What happened was, one of the Spanish language translators revealed that they worked for nearly 4 years on the game with over 2.5 million words worth of translation before release. 4 years, that's 4 years out of the game's 6-year development cycle. That is 2/3 of the game's time this person spent working on this point, so that Spanish-speaking players or Spanish-reading players could play it. As collated by Eurogamer, Baldur's Gate 3 was praised for excellent crediting practices for 7 of their translation support teams by the localization specialist Diego Perez. Unfortunately, there were 8. Altogram Group, the translator for Brazilian Portuguese, left their translators out of the credits. They didn't hand them on to Larian for them to throw them in. And this is where Larian did what I think, at least to my knowledge, no other big company has ever done, and this quickly. They used their weight, their might, their strength, their popularity to go, that's a problem, let's get this fixed. Speaking to Eurogamer, a Larian spokesperson said, "This was all Altogram Group. We reached out and compelled them to fix this. Full credits will be coming in Hotfix 3. As soon as we were made aware, we took steps to remedy it immediately." And now Altogram has apologised and sent the names, which means now those credits will be there. The people who worked for years in this game will rightfully have their name in the credits. Obviously, you may think, well, localization's not super, is it game dev? In the same way people sometimes argue oh, you're a QA, you're not game dev. That kind of sort of nonsense of everyone's involved in the product, you deserve a credit. Maybe you weren't the lead game, maybe you were the game director or lead designer, but you worked on the game. Its success was partly down to you. So the next step they've actually taken, which is fantastic, is Altogram signed up to the International Game Developers Association guidelines on responsible crediting going forwards, which is one of those things of you may think it's not super important, right? But whenever you are, say you're a localizer in this case, and you're under NDA to not share details of product or whatever, or even you're just a small-time localizer and you say, oh yeah, I'm looking at a job now, well, what have you done before? I did Baldur's Gate 3. They're like, cool, but you're not in the credits. Can you prove that in some capacity? Or even just you apply for a job, you list it, and they just cross-reference and go, I don't see. Or you see a name and go, who's this person? Maybe I'll contact this person. You go to a credit site, an accreditation site, instead of talking to them. You go to, well, Moby Games isn't always up to date, but something like that, and go, okay, well, what have they worked on? Oh, they have a 4-year gap in their resume, and they haven't done anything? Well, we could talk to them about it, or we could take the second best person on the stack and not deal with them. Off we go. And that's the kind of stuff that just kind of slowly damages the industry, and almost as soon as that gets worse, it's awful. And localization is one that's, as someone who plays a lot of Japanese games, is really important. It's kind of special topic to me and has been for a long time. And that's why looking at the English localization team for Final Fantasy 14 and 16 with Michael Christopher Koji Fox, and then his follow-up Kate, who was kind of celebrated there at the recent FanFest. The game in English is perfect. They aren't just, oh, we'll take what the Japanese people have written down and translate it. We'll just run it through DeepL or something. It's they kind of write the game as well. That's not always the case, but in certain cases, the amount of skill it requires to literally go, well, direct translate, rewrite into something that feels right, that has the same cadence. Back in the old days, it was, how do we write something that fits into the text box? Because the Japanese developers didn't put ways to translate or ways to change the text box, or maybe sometimes they had to hack stuff in, as anyone who works in fan translation knows. It's really important, and I'm just really happy to see Larian go, no, we are going to be the shining beacon of what's right and what's good, and they're in the perfect position to do so, and I can only hope it continues if anything else crops up. Now this episode's a little bit of a yo-yo, because now we have to say Capcom bad, slightly. So they decided, right, Street Fighter 6. If you look at Capcom's stock graph, everything is going Capcom's way. Everything is astounding. Even the game that, by all accounts, looked like it was going to be a substantial failure, Exoprimal, is actually really quite good. But, again, it's a live service game, Battle Pass, Season Pass, so people started to go, well, hang on, what's going on here? Is this poison that's infecting the industry finally getting its teeth into what might as well be one of the last remaining, like, close to flawless publishers. I know we've talked about them doing some strange things before, like selling the red orbs in Devil May Cry and the Resident Evil 4 weapon tickets, but it seems to be getting slightly worse because Capcom offered a branding deal on Street Fighter 6 with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with the movie coming out. And so, yeah, they had guest costumes and they're $15 each. $15 for a costume. And you can't spend $15, you have to spend more. Because there's a full costume, sticker sets, taunts, in-game camera frames, and device wallpapers. 1,300 fighter coins. Oh, and a bandana for $250. Which, in real-world money terms, more than $100 for the whole thing. And you'll see, like, we'll show some up on screen here, but there's a lot of people who were taking the piss out of this before with, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, $15 turtle costumes, that kind of stuff for the logo. But people kind of took the piss because the character creator's good, right? It's good, and in Street Fighter 6 way, it's goofy. So people just made fake costumes themselves. They're nowhere near as good, right? They're clearly silly, but they're almost better because they involve your creativity and they're not just kind of there. Is it just a frustrating thing? Because even Street Fighter 6's like fighter coins, the way their season pass works, it's not egregious, right? It's not awful, but it is a black mark on what's otherwise an excellent product and an excellent game. And again, we're going back into what I was talking about with Overwatch there, where good game, bad product. Capcom are slightly stepping down the bad product line. So hopefully they can pull that back. Hopefully this is only like occasionally going to happen, small things, but it does look to be a slightly worrying thing for, not for people who like good games, but for people who like Baldur's Gate 3, for people who like uncompromised is the term I'll use, uncompromised things where they buy the game, they open it and they go, I can play this, I am free, I am unburdened, I'm in my lane, flourished and moisturized, I am completely fine to play this and not have to like get hit with a mind bullet every time I open and see a shop and go, I want that, $15, shit. It's just, I hope it ends. I hope it ends, or at least gets better. Our final story for today then is what happens when you make demands of developers. Katsuhiro Harada, obviously anyone who knows Tekken will know him. He's been the long-time Tekken director. He is the face of Tekken in a way. He's opened up on how players like who directly harass him, directly send him messages on Twitter, can actually kind of ruin the game a little bit. There was an Eddie main who was very frustrated with the lack of Eddie in Tekken 8 so far, and he said he will hit Harada with a burning hammer, straight up directly on Twitter. Now, obviously you're like, right, that's just someone who's frustrated. They don't look like they're going to be violent. And a burning hammer, obviously reference to attack and attack, but it's a silly threat. But then Harada said, well, it is a silly threat, but here's literally what's happening. Silly threats, you cannot distinguish them from real threats. Obviously, we're like, you go, well, it's an internet threat. It's not going to happen. But what if it does? But what if that tiny chance happens? No one wants that on their hands. No one wants people to be hurt or worse in this case. So FGC events have to get increased security. And whenever they run late as well, like you look at security prices and you look at, okay, well, we need security for venue opens at 8. What if you run late? What if you run to 12? What if you run to 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m.? Suddenly you're paying way over for security. And suddenly you're like, can we afford this venue? Can we run this event? All because they've had to get extra security because someone basically made a joke on Twitter. And I'm all for joking, but this is kind of the problem where someone takes it seriously and kind of rightly so. Then the way it works is, according to Harada, that company founders, board members and lawyers don't like to be intimidated. They're very much of the do not negotiate kind of category. So they sometimes have asked Harada to cancel whatever the fans are asking for, even if it was planned. Even if they're working on it, even if Eddie was already like planned to show up in like the first Tekken 8 like DLC wave or something, or maybe the second later on, there's a little bit of a chance that because someone said, if we don't get it, I'll hit you, that they have to go, well, we can't let them be right. We can't let them think that threats are the way to go, so we'll have to cancel it. And that gets worse when it comes from groups or people who pretend to be groups, which in this case was specifically highlighted how it's, I swear to, we don't get Eddie. Obviously said, I will hit, but it was the we he pointed said, we don't get Eddie. Obviously, you look at that and say, well, that means Tekken players as a whole. But does that mean the Eddie Discord for Tekken? Is there now suddenly a small, like, secretive group that are waiting in the wings, watching to see Harada's movements when he shows up at the next FGC event or a Tekken event, or say in Tokyo Game Show? Is there going to be people flying there? There's going to be a contingent of Eddie lunatics standing, like, tracking his movements and waiting for him. Yeah, it has to be treated seriously, and now they have to go, okay, those people can't be catered to. What if there's 1,000 Eddie people, and if they see Eddie, they'll think they did it, and they'll become unhinged? We can't have that. It's interesting. But I think, now I'm not going to say where this is from, because it's fairly political in our history, but they only need to be wrong about the threat being real once. That's it. Obviously, you could make 1,000 jokes and then, nothing happens and it's all fine. But as soon as one of those jokes is real, God knows what could happen. So they have to take them seriously, and that's the way like the whole corporate thing works. Even if Farad himself knows, oh, that's dumb, he's going to have someone breathing down his neck going, cancel that feature because someone asked for it on Twitter, not very nicely. And obviously you could maybe fight back, but if it's part of their policy because they're worried for him, then there's not really a whole pile I can say. But he also kind of is, he does a bite to him, let's say. Almost in the same way that Hideki Kamiya does. He has tenure, so he's able to just say, go away, because this person said, I'm going to spend my money elsewhere. Probably better to develop a game the board members and the lawyers will like to play. Basically, you're doing what they tell you, but don't listen to us. Go to hell. He just says, thank you for pointless reply. I've never seen anyone as unreadable as you. You seriously need to study up. Farewell. And I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was just, I guess, in ways, the perfect way to sort people out. Anyway, there you go. That's an episode of the Roundup. We'll be back here tomorrow with another video. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again.